This is my palm. 5 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And every day it reminds me to face my fears. I'm afraid of numbers. That's the truth. And I'll be upfront. Mathematics has never been my strength. And I know that I'm not alone. No one likes being the guy that gets numbers wrong. However, I'll dissect some numbers today. Going through numerous websites reporting on FGM, I cannot help but notice one major problem, and it cuts across publications, both local and international. We are not mentioning absolute numbers enough. And if we do not mention numbers, we risk missing the big picture. Hear me out. Percentage to me has always been the go to indicator for action in the end FGM campaign. When I first got involved in the campaign, I memorized Kenya's 2014 FGM DHS statistics by ethnic group, and everyone seemed to know it by heart. Somali, 94%, Samburu, 86%, Kisii, 84%, Masai, 78%. I never asked myself what these numbers meant. No one seemed to care what these percentages represented. Either way. And my friend and I were having a conversation on successful NFGM campaigns and interventions. When he asked, "Do you know that Nigeria has more FGM survivors than the total number of people that voted in our last general elections?" It was a serious claim. I had to confirm, and I would have to say, alas, Nigeria has 20 million FGM survivors, more than the total number of people who voted in Kenya's last general election, which was 14.4 million. But when you look at the percentages, prevalence, hierarchy, things look different. Nigeria is just above Kenya on the FGM percentages scale. Nigeria has a 19.5% FGM prevalence, representing, listen to this, 20 million survivors, while Kenya has 14.8% prevalence, representing 4 million. Then it hit me. Looking at percentages alone can be pretty misleading. And I'd like us to try something. Open your Google search or whichever search bar you're using and type number of FGM survivors in whichever country of choice. Whatever pops up is probably not an absolute number. Chances are that it's a percentage. And there was an article that was written on The Guardian, and you will be able to see the infographics. I'll put the link just below the video. So when I started digging deeper online, and I quickly went down the rabbit hole, spending hours looking, and I did some mathematics. The number of FGM survivors in Nigeria is more than the entire population of Somalia. The number of FGM survivors in Nigeria is more than 30 times the number of survivors in Djibouti. The number of FGM survivors in Nigeria is 5 times the number in Kenya. Now, let's be clear. I'm not downplaying the severity of FGM in any country here or trying to overstate the population of Nigeria. Please read this simply as a reference to a conversation I had with my friend. No matter where FGM happens, FGM is a harmful practice and no girl or woman should ever experience it. So get that one clear. For those who might not be familiar with the term prevalence, the closest synonym I can find is commonness. In the context of FGM, prevalence refers to how widespread the practice is among women and girls. It's measured as a percentage of the total female population in different data sets, such as country, ethnic group, region, you can name it. So how can we improve storytelling on FGM? We have to recognize the number of absolute numbers. Percentages are useful, I have to admit, but they don't always tell the full story. Always include absolute numbers if you get a hold of them alongside prevalence rates to show the scale of FGM. For example, instead of just saying Nigeria has a 19.5 prevalence rate, say Nigeria has a 19.5 prevalence rate representing 20 million survivors, more than the entire population of Somalia. Put numbers into context. We might not immediately grasp the significance of a percentage or a large number, so try to relate it to something that people can understand. For example, the number of FGM survivors in Nigeria, which is 20 million, is greater than the number of people who voted in Kenya's last general election, which is approximately 14.4 million. Such comparisons create an emotional impact but also remain factual. Define key terms for accessibility. Not everyone understands prevalence or other statistical terms. Define them in a simple language. For example, prevalence means how common something is in the case of FGM. It refers to the percentage of women in a given population who have undergone the practice. Try to verify your numbers from credible sources. Before publishing, always fact check using reliable sources like, let's say, DHS, which is the Demographic and Health Survey, UNICEF, WHO, your national statistic bureaus. Just find that some credible source for your statistic and also try to compare them from this credible one so that you know that you're dealing with something that's acceptable across the board. Visuals can simplify complex data. Use infographics, use maps and charts. These ones will help audiences and decision makers to quickly grasp the scale of FGM. And instead of lengthy tables, try to show a side-by-side comparison of absolute numbers and percentages. Try to break it down in an easy-to-read format. Break it down so that we can understand, and I think that should be the goal. Since many reporters focus only on prevalence rankings, let's add context to the narrative by including absolute numbers. Show that the countries with lower prevalence can still have a larger number of survivors. For example, Mali's FGM prevalence is 89%, but the total number of survivors, which is 10 million, is half of Nigeria's 20 million. Despite Nigeria having a lower prevalence of 19.5%, it still has 20 million survivors. Encourage a shift in advocacy and funding approaches. You know, our stories have impact. Policymakers and funders often focus on high prevalence countries, but reporting absolute numbers can help distribute attention to places with large survivor populations that need urgent support. For example, Nigeria, despite not having the highest prevalence, has a huge number of survivors, meaning that survivor support programs must be scaled up significantly. On the other side, let's capacity build journalists. Since many journalists are uncomfortable with numbers, and I'll tell you because I was still once a journalist, organizations need to provide trainings. We need to be on the same page in terms of interpretation and fact-checking of FGM data, presenting statistics in a compelling and accessible way, and avoiding common pitfalls in reporting. Journalists are a very, very key component in this campaign. So them being on the same page as organizations or campaigners on the front line is very, very key. Let's talk among ourselves. Let's rethink together. Let's discuss the importance of absolute numbers in FGM reporting. Let's encourage journalists, let's encourage activists, let's encourage organizations to make this a standard practice. A high prevalence but a smaller number of survivors does not mean that we should overlook them. In fact, it's an opportunity for us. Targeted support in these communities could have a big impact and help end FGM even faster. Let me know what you think. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. My name is Jeremiah Kipainoi. This has been the Keepcast, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.